Chapter 24. The next day, the three of them started again at Floor 1 and went all the way up to defeat the Floor 6 boss. The final guardian for the jungle-themed floor was an obsidian panther. Jack and Alt blasted it from range while Lex took the brunt of the attacks, as had been their technique for most battles. The day after that, they tackled the Floor 7 boss, a half-rabbit, half-woman that did some serious damage with her powerful legs. Each day they climbed one more floor and continuously fed more items into the town. Each night, Jack and Lex ate and laughed with Raya, and each morning Jack trained with Herrick by the wall. Jack and Alt grew stronger with every drop, and they were halfway through their sweep of Floor 8 when a blade dropped from one of the wandering monsters that pushed Alt over into his next tier. The flash of light happened again, and both Jack and Lex were not prepared to be blinded.
Mother of demons! What was that?
Lex swore, and Jack's mouth split into a smile no one could see. He'd never heard her use that expression before. He'd actually learned a lot about the pointy-eared blonde bastion over the last few days. She took way more risks than she realized by choosing to rely more on her higher stats and her prowess with her shield than to use careful strategy, and it took Jack by surprise. He taught her how to abuse the floor layouts and monster weakness, and she forced him to take one floor at a time. The ground of today's final floor was made of fluffy clouds that made their footing a bit unreliable. The wandering monsters here had divine-type affinity again, but these took the form of a child's angry drawing of a person. The enemies were vibrating black scribbles with red eyes and vicious claws.
"Sorry, that was me gaining more abilities,"
the miniature spaceship said, sounding distant. Jack blinked away his minor blindness and spoke towards Lex.
He used to flash like that every time I gave him an item. What new tricks do you have, buddy?
Alt spoke directly into Jack's mind.
"There are many things I remember and wish to tell you, but would only confuse Lex. I'll tell you the extent of it in bed, later."
Jack's eyebrows came down as he imagined snuggling with his toy spaceship as he fell asleep, like Alt was a teddy bear. The electronic voice switched from inside Jack's head back to emitting from the spaceship.
"You both are really going to like this. Jack, check your third path."
Jack eagerly did what he was told and pulled up his skills interface panel. Path, data summoning, 0 out of 15,000. Call Alt, activated once per entrance. Read.mainhand, remote deletion PR. Summon ARV Alternus to help in the tower. Alter Alt, activated once per floor. I'll take the form of a chosen enemy previously damaged by mining laser. Jack's eyes went wide.
You're shitting me.
What is it?
Lex said, taking a step closer to him.
Alt learned a new trick,
he said.
But how do I choose?
As soon as Jack tried to remember all of the monsters he hit with his ability, a new black lacquer interface panel appeared in his vision. Summon options, usable once per floor. B. Crystal Mother. B. Giant Bullfrog. Phantom Weapon Master. B. Animated Armor. Periwinkle Orb Pheasant. Chitinous Bloodman. B. Impossible Cathead. B. Divine Crab. B. Whirling Tooth Tornado. B. Giant Ruby Worm. Gluttonous Chef. B. Bile King. Sandman. Wooden Wheel. Blue Jelly. Pig Wizard. B. Legion Eye.
I can pick any of these every time we go to a new floor?
"That's what it says,"
Alt said with a hint of sarcasm. Lex put her hands on her leather-wrapped hips.
Pick what?
She said, losing patience. Jack's eyes focused on one of the options and mentally embraced the selection. The tiny spaceship was engulfed by a relatively dim flash, and then standing in his place was a bear-sized crab with a golden halo.
Good choice,"
the crab said with Alt's voice as he gestured with his claw.
"This form derives its hit points and defense from your main hand damage value. A multiple of 3, to be exact."
Jack checked his character screen first. Jack, hero class, irrelevant, level 8. Health, 88 out of 88. Mana, 29 out of 35. Defense, 46. Dodge, 16. Main hand damage 20. Offhand damage 0. Hit chance 0.93. Critical chance 0.1. Magic power 0. Sneak 1.
Nice. That means...
60 HPs.
Lex said, checking her augmented peripheral display before he could check his. Jack, HP 88 out of 88, MP 29 out of 35, Lex HP 270 out of 270, Alt HP 60 out of 60, Coins 195, Inventory value 1,052, Alt value 0 out of 15,000. Jack walked over and patted the new Alt crab on his rune-coated shell.
I picked this one in the hopes that he can take some of the damage instead of you, Lex.
He looked over to see the Bastion's golden eyes shimmering with barely contained tears. Jack took a step toward her, and she held up her gloved hand, quickly flashing him a smile. Lex wiped her face and regained some of her composure.
I can't believe this display of power is happening before my eyes,
she said.
Just promise me you won't summon back the Bile King, Jack.
Jack grinned.
It's a deal. Only if you help me decide which monster we turn Alt into for each floor.
His face dropped when a sobering thought hit him.
Man, I wish I used my mining laser more. I already have quite the collection, but...
Alt Crab jumped in.
We obviously should make it a priority that you tag each monster we find. I'm not sure what any on the list do until you summon one for me. And if anyone wants my opinion, the Bile King boss would probably be a well-rounded addition to the team.
Lex and Jack both caught each other's eyes and began to laugh. Jack slapped the haloed crab on his smooth shell again.
Maybe tomorrow we'll try out that stink monster. Let's finish this cloud floor and go home with our winnings for the day.
They all agreed and moved between the fluffy white clouds until they came to the next demonic scribble monster. Alt Crab took the lead this time, and they were all pleased by how little damage he took from its black claws. Alt -4, HP 56 out of 60. Lex and Jack each leaped out from behind their heavenly crab companion and obliterated the enemy. Jack shot his mining laser first, and then Lex stabbed it directly after. Jack picked up the heavy chest armor the creature dropped and put it into his inventory. Lex took her turn patting Alt's new shell.
This transformation is truly amazing. Those foes would have defeated you with one shot before.
While I miss my more familiar form, this new flexibility in party dynamics should prove to be very interesting indeed.
The rest of Floor 8 went smoothly, and then they came to the boss chamber. Hovering among the pure white clouds was a ball of fire, possibly meant to look like a sun. The thing was about as big as Alt in his crab form, measuring about 6 feet in diameter. The floor boss had black, villainous eyes staring straight ahead, waiting for someone to come and challenge it.
Send in Alt first?
Lex asked.
Yeah.
Jack nodded.
Let him take a few hits, maybe land a few claw strikes. I remember that crab boss really doing some damage. Then I'll blast it with my ability, collecting another summon. After that, you run in and finish it off, Lex.
Understood,
his haloed crab minion said, and then began to scuttle forward toward the sun monster. As Alt moved, Jack noticed that the same weak point pearl was affixed to the rear end of his new form. Apparently, the summoned monsters retained their drawbacks as well. The Floor 8 boss turned its pure black eyes on the advancing crab and sent out 2 golden beams of crackling energy surrounded by an odd black outline. Alt was struck instantly. Alt -10, HP 46 out of 60. The divine beams hit the divine crab and shaved off a fair bit of health. Jack triggered his ability early. He didn't want to waste any time with this ranged high-damage boss. Floor 8 boss, -14, 166 out of 180. He saw Lex dart out and run wide around Alt to flank the sun from the left, and Jack just kept up his beam. He wasn't going to be able to do more damage with actual strikes. Alt -10, HP 36 out of 60. The angry sun's eye beams damaged the crab once more before its attention was pulled toward Jack. With blinding quickness, the floor boss zipped forward to about half the distance to Jack. Alt swung his claw through the empty air where the sun monster had been, while Lex pushed her boots into the fluffy clouds below, changing her direction. Jack applied his damage to the boss again, and an instant later, it blasted Jack with its own ranged beam attack. Floor 8 boss, minus 14, 152 out of 180. Jack, minus 17, HP, 71 out of 88. This was a powerful boss. Jack knew Lex or Alt wouldn't redirect the sun creature's painful attention until they had the opportunity to do enough damage, so he continued blasting his mining laser attack, trading damage with the burning monster. Lex was moving so fast that she overshot her target but still managed to land a solid slice through the hovering ball of fire. Floor 8 boss, minus 45, 107 out of 180. It took another second for Lex to shift her momentum back towards the angry sun, and Jack traded damage with the boss again. Floor 8 boss, minus 14, 93 out of 180. Jack, minus 17, HP, 54 out of 88. The Bastion brought her blade back around in an upward diagonal slice, cutting the thing in half right between the eyes. Floor 8 boss, minus 45, 48 out of 180. Alt Crab also made it over to the fight and grabbed at the sun with one of his claws. Floor 8 boss, minus 8, 40 out of 180. The sun zipped sideways away from the melee attackers and turned its horrible golden eye beams on Lex. Jack shifted his own attack to the floor boss's new location, while Lex and Alt scrambled across the fluffy ground after it. Lex minus 17, HP 253 out of 270. Floor 8 boss minus 14, 26 out of 180. This one hit hard and moved fast, yet a smile spread across Jack's face. Lex could take the hits even if she didn't block. This boss was going down. The angry sun moved again an instant before Lex was about to erase it from existence, but it would only be 2 more seconds before Jack's affinity-handicapped mining laser would do the job. Lex minus 17, HP 236 out of 270. Floor 8 boss, minus 14, 12 out of 180. The experienced Bastion halted her useless pursuit and brought up her shield against the angry sun's energy onslaught. Lex minus 9, HP 227 out of 270. Floor 8 boss, minus 14, defeated. Jack looked forward to this part of their day in the tower. A tingle of ever-increasing euphoria passed through his body as he advanced to level 9. The draw to try and push Lex to go to the next floor right now was maddening. They'd just have to start at floor 1 again tomorrow, and with the Bastion's relatively high-end gear and Alt's new shape-shifting ability, there was a good chance they'd be able to do it. The shorter hero stepped up to him as she sheathed her sword behind her back.
Oh, I might have had a problem with this boss if it kept dashing away from me like that,
Lex said.
Here is a good example of why I stopped at floor 5. I couldn't risk going any higher alone. Your ranged attack makes a large difference, Jack.
Jack suppressed the urge to coerce her into moving forward. He simply nodded and went to loot the boss chest. He was hoping for new leather chest armor, but there wasn't anything interesting or anything any of them could use, so he stashed the items into his inventory. They'd found replacements for most of his gear, but were having a streak of bad luck when it came to that one slot. He pulled up his character screen and passed his eyes over all his equipment, something he liked to do as they left the tower for the day. Offhand, kite shield, value 33, defense 14, max HP plus 20. Chest, dark jerkin, chest, value 9, defense 4, dodge plus 2, max HP plus 3. Legs, heavy leather pants, legs, value 18, defense 8, max HP plus 12, dodge minus 1. Feet, black treads, feet, value 27, defense 11, dodge plus 5. Hands, work gloves, hands, value 24, defense 9, max HP plus 11. Head, empty, ring, amulet, empty. Decorative shirt, common cloth shirt, chest, value 1, defense 0. Decorative belt, empty. Decorative cloak, empty. Decorative hat, empty. There were still a lot of missing pieces he needed to fill up with equipment.
Hey, Lex, why haven't we seen any helmets drop? And why don't you have one?
Head items don't appear until floor 35.
Lex said, moving over to the exit orb.
Did you pick up all the loot?
Sure did.
Still no chest armor upgrade?
Nope, not today. Looks like Alt got some new armor, though.
The crab skittered over to the group, and Jack was having a hard time seeing him as his trusty spaceship friend.
I have a feeling some of my forms are going to be more useful than others. That floor 8 boss we just defeated might have some powerful movement and range damage capabilities.
We have many forms to try,
Jack said, thinking of the strange monsters on the list.
Ready to go home?
Yes, I am, Jack.
She said, then turned to the giant haloed crab.
Thanks for your help today, Alt. I'll see you tomorrow.
The crab dipped its body forward.
Tomorrow, Lex.
She touched the orb and vanished into thin air.
Great work today, Alt,
Jack said as he approached the orb.
You continue to impress me with your cheating.
The crab dipped forward again.
And you continue to change the tide of the battle for this universe.
Jack nodded and slapped the orb, transporting himself out of the tower. The sky was gray and overcast. It was a sharp contrast to the bright blue skies of the cloud floor. Raya was standing by the fountain, and she clomped up to both Lex and Jack.
How was your climb?
Lex answered first.
Jack advanced to level 9 today. We are making solid progress each day.
The blonde hero turned to Jack.
How much loot?
He checked his HUD.
1,152 total value from today's climb.
Most of Jack's advantages were a secret between himself and Lex. Raya and the other townsfolk didn't really care or understand the details or numbers involved. He could tell by the way Lex gave him a sinister half-smile that she was inwardly jumping with glee at the fact that they were able to take so many items out of the tower. Normally, they would be limited to 16 slots each. Jack was currently holding 48 all by himself, 50 including his cloth pants and the unique offhand fork he'd been holding onto. He walked over to the input chest to feed the town when Alt spoke up in his mind again.
I have many things to tell you, Jack, but the most important is what I can now see that we are back in the town. The town is still days from the next level jump, but I can use some of the current power to add or upgrade a building. The options are limited, and this will use up some of the power that is pushing the corruption back. But everything should be fine as long as we aren't forced to exit early tomorrow and lose everything. What would you like to do?
Jack stood there frozen. Lex and Raya were chatting and already moving toward the inn for dinner. Jack thought at the electronic voice inside him and asked if he could clearly read his mind.
Yes, Jack,
Alt said. He mentally asked what the options were.
I could resurrect the farm, or I can upgrade the lumber mill, or a few of the houses.
Jack wondered what the benefits would be to any of these options.
The farm would have the most noticeable bonuses, as Demi would have more ingredients to work with, affecting town morale and rest bonuses.
There was no question in Jack's mind. He was seriously tired of seafood every day. Everyone was.
Since I'm forcing this town building to appear, we'll be able to assign the townsfolk who will be working the farm. I'll need this choice made before doing anything. They'd ideally be good with crops and livestock.
The conversation Jack and Alt were having was all in his mind, and as such they were able to communicate much faster than speaking, but Lex noticed something was off. He'd been standing motionless, staring at the chest for longer than usual.
You coming?
The shorter hero asked. Jack saw Lex and Raya looking at him, and he smiled.
Raya?
He began.
You said you were good with animals, right?
Yeah?
The freckled woman in brown corduroy overalls said, suspicious of the question and of the lopsided grin plastered across Jack's face.
You're hired,
he said while thinking his intentions to Alt. Then the brown-haired, thickly built woman swayed on her feet for a moment.
What did you do?
Lex asked, holding out her hand to steady her friend.
He...
Raya stammered as she appeared to pull up her personal interface.
He made me a farmer. Farmer? How?
Lex asked, her dark eyebrows coming down.
The farm is...
The Bastion trailed off as she looked across the waving grass over to the place where Jack had spent his first night in Blackmoor Cove. From this distance, they could all see the restored buildings, especially the big red barn. Lex turned her golden eyes back on Jack.
How?
She began, but she knew how. She snapped her small mouth shut and narrowed her eyes. Jack had some explaining to do later. He stepped up to the new farmer and inspected her. Raya, townsfolk, farmer, 88% proficiency, health 10 out of 10, disposition friendly. Jack rubbed his hands together.
Let's go check out your new home, Raya. What do you guys say?
A toothy smile split the new farmer's face.
I can't believe this is happening!
Raya started speaking as if in a trance, but became more excited as she continued.
I very much do want to see this. I mean, my farm. How many cows are there? Pigs? Does this mean bacon again?
Alt spoke in his mind.
There is a slight problem. Forcing the update might have had unforeseen consequences.
Chapter 25.
Nothing too bad,
Alt responded after Jack mentally hurled a giant question mark at him.
There are no animals on the farm. The pens are empty, but I do have good news. You can fill the pens with something from the same summon list we just unlocked. The monsters you captured with your mining laser.
That's good news?
Jack said out loud, and both Lex and Raya looked at him.
I mean, I have no idea. I'm not from around here, so what animals we find will be a huge surprise for both of us, I'm sure.
Raya was too excited to notice Jack's notoriously lousy acting, but Lex did. She kept her golden eyes on him as the three of them moved down the dirt path. The new farmer babbled about her new job while they walked, and Jack scanned his list of captured monsters from the tower. The pig wizard caught his attention, but they had been far too human-like to be livestock. That really only left the orb pheasants and the giant bullfrog as real contenders. Alt spoke again, giving him more details.
There is only room for one type of livestock until the town gets a few more levels. We can also change them out any time if we find something more suitable in the tower.
Jack knew there was a fat chance that they'd run into a group of normal cow monsters. They were walking along the side of the cabin where he spent his first night and had very little time before they all walked into the barn and saw either nothing or one of the two horrors he was contemplating. In the end, it had to be the bat-winged Cyclops orb pheasants. They did lay eggs, after all.
Look!
Raya pointed to the perfectly planted fields of green shoots.
I know what these are. Potatoes, tomatoes. Ooh, and that's an herb garden.
Shall I deposit the chosen monster in the pens?
Alt asked in his mind, and Jack mentally confirmed his choice. Raya's excitement was contagious, and the previously suspicious Lex gazed around at all of the new life taking hold in a place that had once been dead. And when she turned her golden eyes up to his, Jack saw a mix of awe and gratitude. The new farmer spun around, almost hitting the shorter Bastion in the head with her long braid, and grabbed Jack by the shoulders.
Potatoes, Jack! Do you know what that means?
He stammered, his mind scanning the catalog of possible dishes made from the versatile tuber.
Mashed potatoes! It also means... Oh, wait.
Raya broke off as she let him go and stomped over to the herb garden. Lex took this moment of privacy to address some of her concerns.
Did Alt do all this?
She asked.
Well, let's just say it was a group effort. Alt and I might not have climbed as high without your help.
Chives!
Raya yelled, kneeling in the middle of the plot of land devoted to a random assortment of plants. Jack was surprised to see how neat and tidy everything was already. He knew a lot of the work related to farming was in plowing and sowing the crops, but was getting better at shrugging things off as video game logic.
Let's get at the barn,
Raya said, standing up and wiping some dirt from her knees.
I can't wait to see what meats we'll get to have with our potatoes.
Jack swallowed hard, and both heroes followed the woman in the overalls to the large barn near the back of the farm. Raya pulled open the huge double doors and spilled light onto a small coop sectioned off with chicken wire. It took up about a quarter of the barn and was filled with about a dozen smaller versions of the periwinkle orb pheasants.
Oh, what are these?
Raya said through a growing smile. She was handling monsters from the tower as livestock well, and he had to admit the smaller chicken-sized versions of the egg-hurling creatures did look pretty cute, even with their 2 sets of leathery bat wings. The balls of pastel feathers all turned their single huge eyes up at Raya as she approached the pen and began to make tiny cheeping noises.
Oh, they're so adorable,
The new farmer said.
I bet they lay eggs, too.
Jack nodded and let out a deep breath.
Yeah, I bet you're right,
He said, then noticed Lex looking at him intently, her eyes burning with questions and a few other statements. Raya turned back to Jack and swiftly embraced him in a powerful bear hug, pinning his arms to his sides. She was a lot stronger than she looked, and her plump bosom smashed against his chest, crushing his lungs.
I don't know how you performed this miracle and how you chose me, Jack, but, well, you're the best thing that's ever happened to this town.
She let him go, and Jack was able to breathe again.
No problem, Raya. Glad to be making a difference.
Raya looked over at Lex and hitched a thumb towards the irrelevant hero.
Making a difference, he says.
The shorter Bastion nodded slowly.
He sure is something. Would you look at these little beauties?
Farmer Raya said as she stepped up to the coop again and started to open the wire mesh door. Jack was afraid they'd attack her, but these seemed to have a completely different manner than the creatures he fought in the tower. He joined the girls in the coop and inspected one of the leathery winged chicks. Periwinkle orb pheasant. Next egg, 99 hours, 48 minutes, and 17 seconds.
That makes things easy,
He mumbled to himself. Lex turned to face him.
Oh, nothing. Just counting the eggs before they're laid.
They played with the domesticated monsters for a little while and then took a slow, meandering tour around the rest of the restored farm while darkness settled over Blackmoor Cove. All the talk about future food combinations reminded Jack that they hadn't eaten yet, so the 3 of them finally headed toward the inn for dinner.
It's too bad.
Raya began.
I might not have any crops ready for a few days, and I don't want to slaughter any of those birds until I have a few eggs. I wonder how they'll taste.
The doughy, freckled woman licked her lips at the thought. Jack had been wondering that same thing. Who knew what would happen if the townsfolk found out they were eating creatures found inside the tower? Lex's father would probably lose his freaking mind. Would monsters from the tower even be edible?
Yes.
Alt answered Jack's internal thoughts.
Believe me, I wouldn't have suggested it if they weren't edible. Not sure how they'll taste. That particular sensation has never been something I bothered with myself.
They were almost to the crossroads that led to the Eye of the Storm when Jack noticed Lex take a few hurried steps forward.
Is that Pan?
She asked, squinting into the darkness. Jack followed her gaze and saw the big man running down the dirt path towards the inn, and sprinting directly on his heels were 4 barely visible demon spawn. Both Lex and Jack re-equipped their gear and drew their swords.
Ron, tell Demi!
Lex said, sprinting ahead to intercept the creatures invading their town. The wide-eyed Raya balked for a moment, frozen by the terrors rushing toward her, while Jack pointed his blade at the one closest to the silent lumberjack and ignited his mining laser. Lesser demon spawn, -20, HP 24 out of 44. The doughy woman in overalls flinched when he activated his death ray right next to her face. That got Raya moving, and she began to cry out in alarm with her powerful lungs as she sprinted for the inn.
Demon spawn! There's demon spawn in the town!
Jack ignored her and focused on the fight before him. Lesser demon spawn, -20, HP, 4 out of 44. The creature melting under his mining laser lit up the whole area, and he could now clearly see the horrible tooth-filled faces snapping in anticipation as they loped after Pan. Their long, blade-like claws tore up the grass, sending tufts of turf into the air as their glistening wet bodies moved. Lesser demon spawn, -20, defeated. Jack finished off his first target just as Lex made it to the pack of attackers. 2 of the remaining demons broke off to engage her as the final one continued to run after its prey. The demon spawn was smart enough to put the fleeing lumberjack between itself and Jack so he couldn't target the creature, and it was gaining on the panic-stricken Pan. Jack had no real course of action but to dash forward and hope he could reach the quiet man before the demon spawn did. Digging his boots into the dirt path, Jack pulled up his shield, intending to put his momentum behind the impending collision and give the fleeing lumberjack a chance to get away. The moment after Jack sprinted past Pan, he slammed his kite shield into the snarling creature chasing closely behind. Although the tooth-filled demon didn't sail through the air like what happened when the 8-foot Kron did the same thing, Jack did halt its progress and forced the creature to deal with him instead. The dripping wet muscular creature snarled and launched forward, but Jack wasn't prepared for the mindless hatred thrown at him, and its razor-sharp claws sliced into his shoulder. Jack -9, HP 25 out of 68. Lex hadn't healed him after they exited the tower. They had been too distracted by the new farm and Raya's new job, and he was facing this threat with a considerable handicap. Jack blocked a few more hits, but it was hard to see the thing in the darkness, and he hoped Lex was okay handling the other 2. Jack -2, HP 23 out of 68. Jack -2, HP 21 out of 68. Then he heard the clear voice of Demi singing into the night behind him. A bright light appeared in the black sky after her short song ended, spilling illumination down over the area. The demon spawn's relentless onslaught on Jack faltered, and it cowered as if the light was painful. He took the opening. Holding his blade tightly, he jabbed it straight into the creature's face. Critical. Lesser demon spawn, -30, HP 14 out of 44. Without missing a beat, Jack ignited a point-blank mining laser, and since his sword's tip was impaled inside the vicious creature, it practically exploded from the inside. Lesser demon spawn, -20, defeated. Jack was finally able to spare a glance over to see Lex deliver the killing blow to the last of the demons. Just over her shoulder, he saw an unknown townsfolk guard trotting up the road. "Blevins!" someone yelled behind him, and he turned to see half the town standing in a semicircle. The one who spoke was Lex's father, Herrick. "Where the hell were you, Blevins?" The townsfolk guard, apparently named Blevins, turned his face to the ground. An awkward silence followed, with everyone staring at the dejected guard. Then Jack began to hear murmurs from the gathered townsfolk behind him.
"Sleeping on watch, no doubt,"
said one. "Deserter," whispered another. Herrick began stalking forward, his hands clenching, his face beet red behind his beard. "I were watching the wharf," the man said finally as he backed a few steps away from Herrick. "Wharfmaster paid solid coin to guard him and his daughter." Herrick stopped dead in his tracks. The old man was visibly shaking with anger. "You abandoned your post near the forest to go down and guard the wharf? Does Kron know of this deal?" No, sir," the other man said, casting his eyes to the ground again. Demi spoke next, and when she did, her voice was both loud enough to hear and yet quiet as a whisper.
"Your greed for coin could have killed everyone in this village."
"It were for the crab, marm," the guard pleaded. I can't afford no meat but old fish. I know I was wrong. Herrick continued his angry stomps toward the cowering Blevins and grabbed him by the collar when he closed the distance. You're coming with me now. Then he turned back to the gathering townsfolk out under the dimming magic light Demi had summoned with her voice. The rest of you go home. Show's over. Before Lex's father left with his mournful charge, he locked his intense eyes on Jack and gave him one quick nod. In Jack's eyes, that one small gesture from the grizzled man was almost equal to a deep bow of respect. Lex gave her father a pat on the back and then stepped up to Jack.
Good job,
she said, her eyes glistening as she watched her father go into the night with the sullen guard. He could tell she was more referring to the positive change in her father that Jack had initiated rather than to his skill battling the demon spawn. Fighting by someone's side, daily and in life-or-death situations, really gave a person a strong feel for how another's mind worked. He clasped her shoulder and gave her a nod before they both followed the crowd back into the inn. As people settled back into their seats, Jack walked Lex and Raya over to a quiet corner, then excused himself. He approached the bar and called Demi over. The silver-haired woman glided over to where he stood.
I'm giving you a bunch of coin,
he said, opening his inventory.
I want you to lower the price you charge for the crab for a few days. I don't think it will matter soon after that.
Jack moved 60 coins from his inventory over to the silver-haired innkeeper, who glanced back at him over her own interface.
You sure about this? This is a lot.
Not for me. And if it helps prevent stuff like this?
Demi tapped her accept button and shook her head.
If it weren't for that bastard Saul...
Jack sighed and nodded. That was something he needed Alt to fix as soon as possible. In response to this thought, the massive spaceship they all existed within spoke up in his mind.
Maybe when the town levels again.
Jack thought back an affirmative and walked back over to join the two women. They ate and chatted about the eventful day, with Raya doing most of the talking, as was customary. Lex caught Jack's eye before she declared she was going to turn in for the night, and he followed her lead.
Enjoy your new home on the farm,
Jack said as he was standing up. Raya beamed pure joy at him.
No one really knows yet. It's going to be such a giant surprise. Oh, I need to tell Kron that I won't be coming to the wall tomorrow for guard training. Don't want any misunderstandings, especially after what happened with poor Blevins.
The short blonde Bastion was waiting for him at the top of the stairs, and she followed him into his room as she had done before. Each time they closed the door and he was alone with her in the cozy, confined space, his heart began to beat faster.
Okay, now, tell me about the farm,
Lex said, sitting down on his bed. He sat next to her.
Well, Alt told me he could either restore the farm or upgrade some houses. Oh, or the lumber mill. The farm seemed like the better idea.
She nodded.
And this was because he gained a level, not the town?
Looks that way.
This is all so impossible,
she said, putting her head into her hands. A shock of her perfectly straight golden hair slipped forward, and her pointed ear stood prominently in front of him. A strong urge took hold of him to reach out and gently rub it between his thumb and fingers, but he thought better of such a bold move. Not yet, and not that. Randomly grabbing her ear would be creepy. Instead, he put his hand on her back. He felt her warmth through her soft green tunic and waited for her to recover. Impossible was a normal day now. A stray thought struck Jack when he realized he still only had the itchy cotton decorative clothes.
Hey, Lex?
She looked up to face him.
When do we start seeing more stuff like this tunic you have dropping in the tower?
She looked down at her clothing.
Oh, this was purchased from the tradesman when Blackmoor still had one. Decorative items like these don't come from the tower.
Ah, got it. We still have a long way to go before this town is back to being normal, huh?
Yes, but the farm is huge. That reminds me. Those bird things. They aren't from where I think they are they?
Jack didn't pull any punches. Not with her.
Oh yes, they are part of my collected monsters from the tower. Keep your eye out for some beefy cows tomorrow, eh?
He said, nudging her side with his elbow. She let out a surprised giggle and then regained her composure as if she remembered she was supposed to be mad at him. It only made her look devastatingly cute.
Jack, if anyone finds out townsfolk are eating monsters from the tower...
I know,
He interrupted her.
I had all of this out with Alt in my head. He assures me that they are edible.
You two are really causing a mess in this town. And I haven't really decided if it's a good thing or not.
Oh, come on. You know you love climbing the tower together with us.
Yes.
She said with a far-off look in her eyes. Then she turned back to him suddenly.
Can I assume you don't know about artifacts?
No. I mean, yes, you can assume that.
Thought so. Floor 10 is when they have a chance to stop dropping from monsters and hidden in chests. But I'm bringing it up because we might start seeing them early.
What do they do, these artifacts?
They don't do anything. They are objects, like art or statues. Trinkets, really. They have much more value than normal drops. The higher we climb, the better the rewards.
I've been wondering about that,
he said.
Helmets drop on 35, right?
That's right.
What about rings and amulets? I still have a lot of slots to fill.
Rings begin to drop on floor 50, and amulets on 65.
There was so much to look forward to in the tower. Artifacts, helmets at 35, and their skills would both jump to Tier 2 and unlock new skills once they hit floor 25. Jack couldn't wait. Lex pushed forward on the bed and looked like she was preparing to leave. He really didn't want her to go yet, so he asked the first question that came to him.
Why did you stop at floor 24?
Lex froze halfway off the bed and then slumped back down, staring at her feet. Jack wondered if he pissed her off again, but they seemed to be past that point in their relationship. She knew that Jack cared for her and just wanted to know more about her. He remained silent as the pointed-eared hero gathered her thoughts. When she finally spoke again, it was with a soft voice and with her gaze still locked on the floor.
When I was 16, I went into the tower with my mother, my father's best friend, a mage called Timus, and a boy my age, Micah. He was an arrogant hothead, and my teenage self thought she was in love with him. Micah, he opened.
She faltered, and Jack saw a tear spill out over her eyelid and splatter off her boot. He reached over and squeezed her hand gently, but stayed quiet. Lex swallowed and continued speaking toward the floor.
We had just engaged the floor 24 boss, and instead of attacking, Micah dashed over to a chest he spotted along one of the tall bookshelves. I know he did it because he wanted first pick on any leather items it contained, but instead he set off a wandering monster trap. Until the chest is closed, such a trap will continue to spawn enemies. Micah and Timus were cut off, forced to retreat as the horrible creatures poured out, and I was left to fight the boss with my mother. She wore cloth armor. She could only heal, and I was distracted. I couldn't pull it off her in time.
Lex turned her tear-filled eyes back to his before she continued, and he saw agony there.
My mother was cut down in front of me, and I ran. When I appeared outside of the tower on exit, I was alone. No one else survived because Micah recklessly rushed in and risked everything. My father was never the same after that. And And that's a whole other story. The town was already on a steep decline, and losing 3 heroes in one day. I didn't go back into the tower for a long time. Too long. And by the time I did, there weren't enough other heroes to help me make it up that high.
Lex brought her other hand over and clasped his between them.
It's why I was so mad at you before. I thought you were going to turn out just like Micah, a dangerously reckless fool. I am so glad I was wrong. These last few days with you, they've been nice, Jack.
Thank you for telling me. And I really enjoy being with you too,
he said. Part of him wanted to pull her to him and hold her forever, but the mood just wasn't right for that. He needed to take it slow with Lex. Rushing things at any point could be disastrous. Instead, Jack was just there for her and remained content holding hands for a while as they gazed into each other's eyes. Eventually, Lex nodded and stood as she let out a shuddering breath. He could tell she felt a little better talking through all that with someone. She moved over to the door handle and said,
Good night, Jack. See you in the morning.
Night, Lex. I wish you nothing but the sweetest of dreams.
She gave him a purely beautiful smile, and then shut the door behind her.
Finally,
Alt said in his mind.
We have some things to discuss. For instance, you know you'll eventually die too, right?
Jack's eyebrows came down hard.
Yeah, I suppose. I try not to think about it too much. No respawns, then?
No!
Alt answered quickly.
Hopefully, when you go, it'll be from old age, many years from now, but I need you to be aware that's what happens in this world.
That's what happened in my world anyway. Did people not die in your future world of spaceships and weirdly named fast food places?
This is serious, Jack, but yes, people died in my universe, just not beings of pure energy like you are now. This virtual universe had to follow rules, or the dimension-eating entity would—
We need to come up with a better name for it.
Jack interrupted him. The electronic voice in his mind sighed.
Okay, what do you want to call the multidimensional being beyond all comprehension that devours whole universes?
Weren't your people studying it before? You had to have something shorter. Wait, the people here call it the corruption. Let's go with that.
Fine, now be quiet and listen to me. With more resources, I can access more system logs, and I discovered something very troubling.
Jack sat back on the bed. Alt had his attention.
The corruption needed to be tricked into thinking this virtual universe was real enough to keep most of its focus here instead of the physical world outside. If it's distracted, I can scrub all its influence in the ship with my nanites. Then the foreign entity will only exist here, in this virtual universe. The corruption needs a challenge, though, or it won't focus enough on the trap that is subroutine Sana. When the 13 crew members volunteered to enter the simulation and fight back, they knew that they had a time limit before the system aged their digital bodies and they expired from natural causes. They knew there was nothing I could do to prevent that. It is part of the universe's rules, not to mention the fact that I was so weak from the fight with the corruption. It was all I could do to keep its physical attacks away from my core. I spawned the 13 crew members in 13 separate towns. With actual players helping to guide the NPC townsfolk, I assumed that they would be better off covering more ground. The logs show that all of them were successful and became kings and queens of their domain. There are many more than 13 towers in this simulation, but their success pushed the corruption back and even opened interconnections between their regions. They were winning the war, and the corruption was barely paying attention to the real world. Eventually, the original crew members all died of natural causes, except one, Valentana. My models predict that if she had done what was expected, the NPC towns would have had the advantage and the momentum established by the players to carry this virtual battleground through to ultimate victory long ago. Instead, Valentana, motivated by her fear of death, sought out the corruption and let it convert her.
Jack held up his hand, but no one was in the room to see it.
Wait, it didn't kill her?
No, that's not what the corruption does. Everything it consumes becomes a part of it. Jack, this thing is way beyond understanding. From what we learned before the unfortunate events that brought this mess to your universe, it simultaneously exists in many others. It spans an unknown number of dimensions, converting resources into tools that help to spread itself further. And when it got hold of a player in this universe, everything went downhill quickly. Her personal system logs become garbled at this point. I know she isn't really herself anymore, but now serves as a relatively powerful agent for the enemy. This was the point where the battle turned, and she began to help the corruption convert towns and towers to its side.
Jack was still confused.
She's still alive after thousands of years? Doesn't that break the rules?
Well, alive is not really the way I'd describe what she is now. Her pattern has been corrupted, and she is no longer a hero, more like an anti-hero, and there are no rules in this universe preventing it. On the contrary, the collection of gaming systems that maintain this world are not helping either side, just simulating an entertaining universe. The corruption is technically a player too, and it has no problems with taking every advantage it can find.
Jack laid back in his bed and considered everything Alt had said.
You know what, Alt? You tell some horrible bedtime stories.
The upside is that I learned that I can get away with being a bit more proactive outside the tower because of this shift in balance. The farm upgrade was an example of that newly discovered freedom. Inside the tower, it's pure chaos, and I have more leeway there. Out in the overworld, I still need to be mostly careful.
Speaking of the farm, those crazy Cyclops birds laid indestructible eggs in the tower. I can't wait until Demi breaks her cookware trying to crack one open.
The domesticated version of the monster appears to be more domesticated. I'm sure she'll be fine.
Jack smiled and closed his eyes. He tried to imagine what it would be like to give himself up to the corruption. It didn't sound pleasant.
So, now what, Alt?
He said, his eyes still closed.
Now that we know this Valentine lady is out there, what do we do about it?
It's Valentana, and we need to find her and bring her hit points to 0. Only then will we be able to safely convert other towns and towers back to our side without her getting in the way and possibly acting behind us and undoing our work. Obviously, we need to fix Blackmoor Cove before anything else.
Obviously. Is there anything else I need to know?
Loads, but nothing you need to know this instant.
Jack stretched out his jaw with a huge yawn. It had been a long day.
Thanks for the history lesson, Alt. But now I'm going to try and get some shut-eye so we can continue to save all the universes tomorrow.
Sweet dreams, Jack.
Yeah. Thanks.
Chapter 26. Alt spoke in his mind to wake him up, and it always seemed sooner than it should be.
Damn it, Alt. Is your internal clock broken or something?
I am the clock, Jack.
He rolled out of bed, crossed through the empty common room of the inn, and pushed open the door. The morning was unusually cold and dreary, and Jack wanted nothing more than to crawl back under the covers. He was having a particularly pleasant dream, and it would be fantastic if he could pick back up where he left off. Jack flinched when Alt's electronic voice spoke in his mind, scattering his thoughts as he trudged down the dirt path to the wall.
continuing your training with her father is the best way to make that dream a reality.
You watch my dreams, too?
Jack realized that if he ever did get close to Lex, Alt would always be there, watching. Not to mention the permanent leather sheath literally coming between them.
I can feel your revulsion, Jack. I promise you I don't want to make this existence difficult or unpleasant. I was trying to be helpful.
Can't you get out of my head and give me some damn privacy for once?
There was a pause.
I'll be honest. No, not right now. I can be quieter, if that's what you'd like.
Jack felt a twinge of hurt coming from his sword belt. He looked down and patted the leather scabbard as he walked.
Well, thanks for being honest. Just try not to get into the personal stuff. You know, like my dreams, for example. And please don't offer me advice about my love life. Unless I ask for it.
Understood.
When Jack arrived at the wall, he saw the giant horned man walking up to meet him.
Raya says you restored the farm and made her a farmer,
Kron said with dire seriousness. Jack had a split second to decide whether to take credit or play dumb. He chose to play dumb.
How could I do something like that?
Kron bore into him with his steely eyes in response, and as the hanging silence drew uncomfortable, Herrick walked up to join them.
You constantly break the rules, Jack,
Lex's father said, his huge arms crossed under his long gray beard.
You make people suspicious, make us watchful.
Jack crossed his own arms and held his eyes on Kron, then Herrick, making sure he had their attention.
Kron, you once told me that we were cool as long as I helped the town. And Herrick, you saw me dispatch the demon spawn last night and fight alongside your daughter when one of the guards deserted his post to earn some extra crab money. Maybe you both should be watching your own men and let me follow my destiny.
The two grizzled warriors exchanged glances before a lopsided smile appeared on Kron's face.
Cool, he repeated in his deep, gravelly voice. I like that, Jack.
He nodded his horned head.
You and I are cool.
The Guardian turned and walked back to his standard position by the gate that served as the entrance to Blackmoor Cove. Yet Lex's father continued to scrutinize Jack, and it made him angry.
Look, I know you have your own personal demons to deal with, and you can be suspicious all you want. As long as you don't get in my way, I don't really care. Now, are you going to continue to train me, or was coming out here this morning a waste of time?
Jack practically heard Herrick grinding his teeth.
In the sparring yard, now,
was all the old man said. The bygone hero did not go easy on Jack, and they both beat each other down to 1 HP over and over. He knew it was another exercise in cathartic release, but Jack chose to make today's lesson about composure. He took a few powerful hits to his shield from the enraged old hero before he unequipped it for more practice with only his blade. With Lex designed to take hits, and now Alt's new ability to become different monsters, he felt the need to start moving away from the shield to see if he could specialize in doing more damage. After his intense training by the wall, Jack met Lex for a quick crab salad breakfast before heading into the tower. Floor 1's layout consisted of narrow corridors made of glass over a black linoleum tile ground, and they could see everything through the transparent walls. The wandering monsters were headless kangaroos hopping in set patterns among the hallways, and an emerald cube awaited them in the boss chamber. They argued for a little while about the first form Jack would force the hovering spaceship to take. Alt wanted to be the Bile King, and Lex wanted to see how powerful the I-beam sun was from the previous day, but Jack told them there were plenty of easy floors above them to try everything, and since it was his ability, he made an executive decision. With a grin, Jack picked the Cathead boss. He chose that monster for a few reasons. First, the boss was huge when they first encountered it, and Jack was curious about what would happen when he transformed the tiny spaceship to something so big in a floor where the walls were so close. Also, it was just so weird, and he wanted to show Lex. A flash of light consumed Alt before the toy spaceship was replaced by a beach ball-sized version of the Cathead boss. Jack crossed his arms.
Well, that answers that.
Interesting,
The floating Cathead said, using Alt's voice while his big green eyes scanned the surroundings.
I don't know if I want to laugh or scream,
Lex said. Jack let out a small chuckle.
I've never seen you have facial expressions, Alt. Say something else.
The hovering orange Cathead turned to face him.
I'm curious about its combat abilities,
The cat said with his stubby mouth, his eyes squinting a little.
I have a wide area fear attack at my disposal, and I can launch energy projectiles out of my eyes, it appears. Not a lot of damage or defense, however.
Jack reached his hand out slowly to his artificial friend. Alt's huge cat eyes tracked his movements, but the giant furry head held still while Jack stroked his whiskers with the back of his knuckles.
Who's a good kitty?
Jack asked in a deep, patronizing voice. Alt's large eyes turned to Lex for support. The blonde hero folded her arms under her chest.
Shall I leave you two alone and clear the floor myself?
Jack shot her a smile and then pointed down the glass corridor that led into the transparent maze.
Let's see what this thing can do. Sick 'em, Alt!
They cleared the first floor quickly and then tried out the Bile King on floor 2. Lex and Jack immediately regretted it. The disgusting monster had a passive stink cloud that did considerable damage over time to any foes close by, but even though Jack and Lex's hit points were not affected, their noses were. They sent Alt far ahead to clear the floor on his own and vowed to never use the form again unless they had a dire need. It was Lex's choice for floor 3, and as soon as they appeared in the volcanic-themed area, Jack transformed the Bile King into the angry sun.
Excellent,
Alt said, his electronic voice emitting from the mouthless ball of fire.
This form does 2 times your main hand damage once every 5 seconds. Also, it's 100% divine damage, so we should take advantage of that on elemental arcane floors, like this decidedly fire-affiliated environment. However, it'd be useless against nature death floors.
Jack shook his head.
I'm going to need to draw a chart on my hand. There's so much to remember.
Lex put a gloved hand on his shoulder, and he turned to look into her golden eyes.
Don't worry, you'll get it eventually. Day after day, floor after floor, the rules of the tower will become second nature to you.
He gave her a smile and said,
I'm sure you're right.
Then turned on Alt and pointed across the bubbling lava at a flickering flame creature.
Blow 'em to bits, if you'd be so kind.
With Alt doing 50 damage per hit to the elemental creatures, he was a killing machine, and they finished floor 9 that day with ease. The next few days went by quickly as Jack, Alt, and Lex continued to work together and push higher 1 floor at a time. They had ended the floor 12 boss yesterday, a giant moth saturated with paralyzing dust that locked Alt up for most of the fight, and Jack was disappointed they hadn't found any artifacts yet. His weapon's growth slowed as well. Alt told him it was because he needed to merge with blades from increasingly higher levels to have any direct effect on the weapon's stats, although Alt's personal value did steadily advance with every sharp weapon he fed the entity of pure energy living in his mind. Jack had to admit that Lex's plan of upping their climb by only 1 floor a day was a good move. It gave him plenty of chances to find better gear before getting in over his head. If he would have continued to go alone, there was no doubt in his mind that he would have been impatient and taken more dangerous risks. Today, they intended to defeat the Floor 13 boss, and Jack was hoping a nice new shield would drop. He pulled up his character panel as he strode up the dirt path back from his morning's training with Lex's father. Jack, Hero Class Irrelevant, Level 13, Health 113 out of 113, Mana, 68 out of 68. Defense, 92. Dodge, 44. Main hand damage, 25. Offhand damage, 0. Hit chance, 0.93. Critical chance, 0.11. Magic power, 0. Sneak, 1. Next, he pulled up his character window to obsess over his equipped items. Main hand, ARV Alternus, sword, value, 1,178 out of 15,000, damage 25, hit chance plus 0.08, crit chance plus 0.1, HP plus 8, MP plus 12, 15% chance to heal 1 HP on kill, plus 1 sneak. Offhand Kite Shield, shield, value 33, defense 14, max HP plus 20. Chest, thick hide vest, chest, value 48, defense 21, max HP plus 15. Legs, primal trousers, legs, value 60, defense 22, max HP plus 25, max MP plus 18, dodge plus 5. Feet, fine sturdy boots, feet, value 43, defense 18, dodge plus 9, max HP plus 15. Hands, Night Fist, hands, value 55, defense 15, max HP plus 20, max MP plus 20, dodge plus 20. He was quite happy with what he saw there. The shiny black leather gloves were his newest upgrade, and he was starting to feel the need to focus on dodge. When Jack made it back to the inn for breakfast and pushed open the door, he saw Raya standing at the bar next to Lex and talking to the innkeeper. They all turned to see who had entered.
Oh, good morning, Jack. Do you know what today is?
The farmer practically yelled her question.
Harvest Day?
He guessed as he crossed the common room and sat in his usual place next to Lex. Demi nodded, a wide smile on her normally composed face.
She brought me potatoes, beans, leeks, and a whole manner of herbs I can make into spices. You climbers are in for a treat today.
With that, she whisked herself behind the blue, white-eyed curtain and began preparing their new and improved breakfast.
I'm off,
Raya said, slapping her meaty hands on both heroes' backs.
Lots of work to do on the farm, and I should see some periwinkle eggs today. What an exciting time to be alive!
Jack and Lex bid her farewell, and the freckled-faced farmer clomped out the door.
What do you think breakfast will be?
Jack asked. Normally it would take at least a few months before newly planted crops matured enough to harvest, but normal was nowhere to be found in subroutine Santa. Still, waiting the few days they did to finally eat something that wasn't from the sea was maddening. He couldn't imagine what it must be like for everyone else in the town.
I haven't a clue,
Lex answered.
but our culinary artist has just been given a pile of new ingredients. I'm sure it will be delicious.
Jack waggled his eyebrows at the Bastion sitting next to him.
And I bet the rest bonus will be equally as delicious.
Lex giggled as Demi came back from behind the curtain with a plate in each hand.
Now, this would normally cost you more than you paid in advance, but since you've donated substantially more coin than necessary recently, I'll waive the additional fee.
Jack's full attention was focused on the heaps of food piled on the plate set before him. Demi continued while he let the steaming aroma fill his nose.
It's also more food than a typical breakfast, but since it's a special occasion...
What am I looking at?
Jack said, drool beginning to form in the corner of his mouth.
Grilled zucchini and tomatoes with garlic, potato pancakes with chives, and spinach-baked crab. I figured you might be sick of seafood, but I wanted to give you a meat option.
This is beyond my wildest expectations,
Lex said, leaning her face over the artfully arranged pile of food before her.
Well, stop staring at it,
Demi said, putting her hand on her aproned hip. The heroes didn't need to be told twice, and they both attacked the diverse meal like it was a floor boss. The flame-seared vegetables exploded in Jack's mouth with a rich garlic aftertaste, and the hearty potato pancake was crisp on the outside and soft on the inside. Even though he was sick of seafood and spinach wasn't his favorite, when Jack shoveled the combination into his mouth, he completely reevaluated his preferences. The innkeeper let them get deep into their meal before she spoke again.
Now that I have more ingredients, you both can finally order individual meals for breakfast again. I'll try and get a menu together over the next few days.
Jack looked up from his feast as his mind worked out what that meant for the two heroes.
We can each have different rest bonuses?
Yes.
Lex said as she swallowed a forkful of roasted vegetables.
Start thinking about what stats you want to focus on, and Demi can make a meal to suit your class.
Jack contemplated the ramifications of this information, and his mind whirled with possibilities as he ate. Eventually, he scraped the last bit of crispy potato pancake into his mouth.
I'm speechless.
He said, placing his fork across the empty plate.
And full.
Then the familiar white eye on a blue square icon flashed in his peripheral vision. He focused on it to see the new rest bonus. Rest bonus, plus 40 health, plus 30 mana, plus 10 defense, gain 30 mana on floor transition. Duration, exit. Variety is the spice of life, and mana, and defense.
Now that's a rest bonus,
Jack said with a serious tone.
Let's go put it to good use,
Lex said, finishing her last bite. Jack looked over and saw that she ate about half of everything and wondered if she got the same rest bonus if she didn't clean her plate. He checked his HUD and focused on her HPs. Lex HP, 290 out of 290. Yep. Good to know if he didn't feel like stuffing himself to bursting, he would still get the full rest bonus. He pushed away from the bar.
Amazing as always, Demi.
Thanks, Jack. See you both at exit.
The innkeeper took the plates and disappeared into the kitchen while Lex and Jack made their way to the tower. With Alt's shape-shifting and their substantial rest bonus, floors 1 through 12 went quickly. The Bastion gripped the iron ring on the door labeled 13, and they were engulfed in white brightness. When Jack could see again, he found himself standing in an arcade.
No way,
he said, spinning around. There were mostly pinball machines in the hall they started in, but Jack could see a claw machine or two up ahead as well. Lex put her hand on her hip and looked over at him.
Every now and then I see these nonsense floors with strange contraptions.
These are arcade games, Lex.
And they were, but everything was made of wood and metal as if they were built in the 1900s. Alt was currently in the shape of the angry sun, and his burning ball of fire cast some more light on the otherwise dimly lit interior. The ground was a brown-red carpet, and above was the familiar white drop-ceiling paneling he had seen everywhere in his old life. The rush of nostalgia hit Jack like a freight train.
You know what all of this is?
Lex asked.
It's from his old universe,
Alt answered for Jack.
I'm a bit surprised to see a layout like this myself.
What are these for?
The petite blonde in the leather armor stepped up to one of the nearest pinball machines.
Is it a magic device?
Jack stepped up behind her. The backboard was painted to show a detailed stereotypical magician with a long mustache holding out a black top hat. A white rabbit with blood-red eyes stood inside his hat, and under it all was the title.
My world didn't have magic. It's a simple game, Lex,
Jack murmured. Then something occurred to him. He pointed at the letters painted with a flourish and said,
Hey, can you read what that says?
Black magic bumpers?
She looked back at him.
Didn't you just say that your world didn't have magic?
No. We have pretend magic, sleight of hand, and parlor tricks.
He's telling the truth,
Alt said, hovering behind them and then continuing to speak inside Jack's head privately.
Apparently, the systems in charge of randomly generating floors are pulling from a much wider table of data than I had anticipated.
Jack looked down at Lex and watched golden eyes bounce around the convoluted layout of the pinball table. There were bumpers and wooden flaps with painted points on them, ramps and holes and all manner of colorful details to the game. He looked down by the spring-loaded plunger that allowed the player to send the pinball into the game and saw a coin slot below it. On a whim, Jack opened his inventory interface and tried to move a coin over to the receptacle. To his astonishment, he heard the customary metal clink of a coin dropping into an empty box within the machine, and it made a series of initializing mechanical thunks. A bell rang twice, the blank score display in the backboard flipped to a series of zeros, and a silver ball rolled into position against the plunger.
What's happening to it?
Lex said, backing away. She bumped right into Jack standing behind her, and he quickly took hold of her elbows.
Relax,
He said quietly by her pointed ear.
It's a game, and I'm going to show you how to play.
The blonde Bastion lingered a moment, her backside pressed against him, and then stepped forward toward the machine. Jack slid his hands down her arms to her leather-gloved hands and placed them onto the buttons to either side.
Press your fingers on that protrusion,
He said. She did, and the right flipper sprang upward. Lex flinched at the sudden movement.
I don't understand what any of this madness is,
She said, but he could tell she was intrigued. Jack practically whispered in her ear from his position close behind.
This is called a pinball table. Those numbers at the back are your score. When you pull back on that knob there, the ball will launch into that madness you mentioned. Each target the ball hits will increase your points. The flippers at the bottom are controlled with the buttons you pressed, and you can press them as much as you want. If the ball rolls down past your flippers, it's done. Usually, you get 3 balls total before it's a game over, and you have a final score.
She pressed the buttons a few times, causing the flippers to alternate with mechanical thunking.
Probably easier if you just played. It's an intuitive game.
Jack said, resting his hand on her hip and looking over her shoulder.
Pull back that knob, and when you're ready, let it go.
Lex reached her hand down and pulled on the plunger a tiny bit and quickly let it go. It struck the silver ball, but it didn't make it halfway up the table before it bounced back against the plunger. Jack smiled.
You'll have to pull it back a little farther. Really give that ball a whack.
The short hero gave it another try and pulled all the way back this time. The rubber end of the plunger smacked into the ball and sent it whizzing up into the table. Jack had played his fair share of pinball when he worked for a bowling alley. It was his first job, and he was tasked with emptying ashtrays and collecting empty beer glasses during league nights. Those tables had been electronic and constantly made enticing noises if they were idle, not to mention the cacophony of insanity they assaulted his ears with when playing. This one was different, much older, as if it were made by a mad Amish genius. The silver ball bounced around the table, hitting a few of the bumpers and racking up some points.
Man the flippers!
Jack yelled when he noticed her hand was still on the plunger.
Don't let the ball get past! Rack up as many points as you can!
With a tiny yelp, Lex moved her gloved hand back over the buttons and pressed them both, causing the flippers to activate and hold their upward position. Just as the ball came down, she had the presence of mind to let them go and press again at the last minute, sending the ball back up into the table. It hit a ramp at full speed and struck a spinning flap, netting a load of points. Bells rung as the score accumulated, but eventually, her luck went sour, and the ball slid through one of the side alleys that led right to the bottom, ending the round.
That wasn't fair.
She said, looking at him over her shoulder.
There was nothing I could do to stop it.
He nodded.
That's life. Sometimes the ball is out of our control. But look.
He pointed to the silver ball waiting by the plunger.
You have another ball, and another chance to collect more points.
With little hesitation, the Bastion reached for the knob and pulled back hard. She widened her stance as she let go, sending the ball speeding to its fate, and he could tell Lex was determined to score big. Jack looked back to see Alt in his blazing sun form scanning the hallway ahead, silently making sure nothing came to disturb them, and he sent his friend mental appreciation. The floating ball of fire turned to face him, and its slanted, angry black eyes dipped once before it went back to keeping watch. They played pinball for a while, taking turns on black magic bumpers. Then they played one called the Desert Queen, with a scantily clad half-cat woman painted on the backboard. Jack consistently beat Lex's score at first, but after he showed her how to stall the ball on the flipper and aim for a specific target, Lex was able to beat him once or twice. They had a lot of fun, but they both agreed it was time to move on.
Before we sweep the floor,
Jack began.
We have to play the claw machine. It's a much simpler game and much shorter, but I think you'll like it.
I never imagined the tower held floors like this, Jack.
Lex said, her golden eyes locked on his.
Please, show me your clawing game.
They walked down the row of pinball tables, each with its unique theme. When they came to the four-way intersection, the glass case of colorful stuffed animals drew the bastion in like a magnet.
What manner of...
Lex trailed off as her eyes took in the pile of claw machine prizes. Jack took her hand and placed it on the control stick. He risked leaving it there as he stood pressed close behind her, his hand enveloping hers around the metal shaft. She didn't protest, so he proceeded to explain the game.
When I put the coin in, you will have a limited amount of time to maneuver the claw on the ceiling there over the prize you want. When you think you have it in a good position, press the button on top of the stick, and the claw will drop down. If you're lucky, it will grab a prize and drop it in that chute where you can retrieve it.
Reluctantly, he let go of her hand to give her some room and said,
Ready?
She nodded, her eyes focused on the pile of stuffed toys. Jack deposited a coin, and the machine began to play music. It sounded to Jack as if there were a music box buried somewhere inside. Lex froze, her head tilted to the side slightly.
That music?
Hurry, Lex. You only have a few seconds.
She jerked the shaft sharply and sent the metal claw swinging on its wire. Completely frazzled, Lex pressed the button, and the claw dropped as it hit an apex of its gyrations, causing the metal pincers to land on its side. The claw clamped shut on thin air and reeled back up to the top before depositing nothing into the prize chute. The internal music stopped as soon as the claw returned to its starting position.
Want me to help guide you?
Jack whispered near her pointed ear. The shorter blonde woman nodded slowly, and he reached his hand back over around hers, stepping in close again. He couldn't help but smell her hair, and he almost forgot his name as his senses were filled with everything Lex. It had been a while since he was with a woman last, and she was already past the point of irresistible to him. Shaking it off, he focused on the task at hand. He was going to win her a prize.
Which one were you going for?
He whispered.
The red-haired doll?
Lex answered softly.
Okay, the trick to these is finesse. A lot of people from my world believe claw machines are scams, but you can win with some practice.
Without taking his hand from hers, Jack willed a coin into the machine from his inventory, and it sprung to life. He gripped her hand tightly and nudged the control stick left, then pulled it toward them. He leaned sideways a bit to get his perspective right, and waited for the claw to come to a rest as it hung from the ceiling of the machine. The sheet music coming from inside increased its tempo, and Jack knew he only had a few seconds left before the claw would drop automatically. He nudged it a bit more to the right, waited for it to swing the way he wanted it to, and then pressed Lex's thumb down on the button. The metal pincers plummeted down as 3 individual claws sank deep into the pile of toys, and a smile grew on Jack's lips. It was a clean drop. The claws constricted around the doll Lex had pointed out and lifted it up into the air. The blonde Bastion let out a small gasp as she watched it move upward out of the other prizes. When the claw hit the top of the glass booth, the sudden stop caused the doll to slip, only to be held by one of her sock feet, and Lex let out an
Oh!
her gloved hands going to her mouth. But the brave doll held on until the claw disengaged, and the red-headed prize was deposited into the chute. Jack reached down and pulled it out, handing it to Lex. Her golden eyes shone with an inner light as she glanced from the stuffed doll to Jack.
You said there was no magic in your world. But if this machine isn't magic, I don't know what is.
Jack just smiled as Lex looked back down at the prize. She tensed suddenly, and her darker eyebrows nearly shot off the top of her head. She slowly turned her eyes back to his.
Jack, do you know what this is?
He gave her a frown and then shrugged.
Stuffed doll?
She held the shoddily stitched child's toy out toward his face.
Inspect it,
she demanded. So he did. Molly the Moppet. Artifact. Value 500. A lopsided smile grew on Jack's face as he realized it was probably worth more than everything on this floor combined.
I truly hate to interrupt,
Alt said from up one of the hallways.
but we have an incoming wandering monster.
Lex stashed the doll in her inventory as they both spun to see what the angry son was talking about. Quietly rolling toward them down the hall of pinball machines was a giant white six-sided die with black dots. One side at a time, it flipped forward.
Over here, too!
Lex called, and Jack spun to see another die the size of the hallway coming at them from another path.
All sides.
Alt corrected as another appeared down the third unexplored arcade passage. Jack began to give orders.
I'll take this one. Alt, the left. And Lex, see what you can do about the right. We'll converge on you once ours are burnt down. If any of us get in trouble, we retreat as a group back to the exit orb and hold our ground there. Now, let's do this!
Chapter 27. Jack didn't wait for a discussion and ignited his mining laser on one of the three immense dice rolling toward them. Lucky roller, -27, HP 80 out of 107. The massive cube flipped from 3 dots to 5 and was closing the distance fast, but Jack had his down to 0 in 3 more seconds, adding another summon to Alt's transformative repertoire. He checked to his right and saw Lex dart in with her first jab before swiftly jumping backward. Lucky roller, -45, HP 62 out of 107. 2 more like that and she'd have hers down. He checked his right and saw the ball of fire that was Alt send out his second blast of dual I-beams. Lucky roller, -54, defeated. As Jack spun around and rushed to back up Lex, he shook his head, reveling in how cheaty Alt had been since day 1. The angry sun transformation had no defense and limited hit points, but with double Jack's main hand damage every 5 seconds, his power scaled beautifully. Lex danced backward after her second melee hit with her blade on the huge cube, and Jack boldly jumped past her, slicing his weapon down on the advancing foe's leading corner. Lucky roller, -45, HP 17 out of 107. Lucky roller, -27, defeated. The black and white die vanished in a swirl of rising dust, and a pair of metal boots dropped on the floor. Jack sucked them up into his inventory and turned to flash a smile at Lex.
3 at once and we annihilated them.
Lex reached her left hand behind the small of her back to grab her sheath as she slid her blade into it over her shoulder, and Jack loved it every time she did.
Again, we're only on floor 13,
she said.
Things get harder at 20, and even with our advantages, we'll probably need a full party to handle anything over 50, or so I'm told.
Speaking of advantages,
Jack said as he walked up to another claw machine.
We should blow most of our extra coins on plucking more artifacts from these claw games.
Absolutely,
Lex said, stepping up next to him. Jack willed over one of his 402 remaining coins to the machine, but nothing happened. He tried again. It didn't work, and his brows came down under the weight of minor frustration. Alt hovered closer and shed some light on the situation.
It appears these machines only function until a single item is dispensed.
Lex put a hand on his shoulder and he turned to face her.
It's okay, Jack. I would never have attempted to use coins on these bizarre contraptions as it is. I feel very fortunate to have this artifact. And I had a great deal of fun learning these games.
I think you should keep it.
He said on a whim.
Molly, I mean. We're making plenty of value for the town. More each day.
He could tell she was about to object, so he put his finger up by her lips.
Hold on to her for now, okay? You decide later whether to dump her in the chest or keep her to remember today.
Lex shut her mouth and nodded. Her eyes turned to the floor and then back up at him, shining with that golden light that he cherished so much.
Very well.
Lex said at last.
Shall we finish this floor and see what delightful meal Demi has in store for us at exit?
We shall,
Jack agreed. He never felt hungry or thirsty while they were in the tower, and wondered what would happen if he and Lex spent hours just hanging out playing pinball games. Floor 13 continued in a maze-like fashion before them, and the trio came across more giant dice foes blocking the way forward. Before long, Alt spotted a unique doorway between the arcade games. Jack and Lex peeked inside and saw a 10-foot plush green dragon sitting in a large room decorated with pink and white paper streamers. The floor boss looked like one of the toys they could have won out of the claw machine, with cartoonish red spikes down its back onto its stubby tail and soft yellow horns on its head. It had a long snout with nostrils made of black string. Sitting in a corner was the boss's exit orb.
Looks like the place my mom rented for my 9th birthday party,
Jack whispered.
Except for the huge stuffed animal. That would have been pretty neat.
Movement from Lex caught his attention, and he saw her scanning the frame of the doorway.
I bet the boss won't be able to fit through this opening,
she said, giving him a sly smile. He nodded.
Way to abuse the surroundings. Why don't you hang back, relax, and let Alt and I blast this stuffed monster?
The shorter blonde hero responded by stretching out her arms and stifling a yawn.
If you need me, I'll be over here.
The burning ball of fire that was Alt's current form floated up and positioned himself next to Jack. The angry sun turned his black eyes toward him.
It'll be like shooting rabbits in a barrel.
What? Rabbits? For me, it's shooting fish in a barrel.
People in your world catch fish by shooting them. How does that work through the water?
No. Never mind. Let's agree to say it'll be like shooting a ridiculously big stuffed dragon through a tiny door. Deal?
The sun dipped his dark, angry eyes.
Deal.
Let me shoot first, make sure I tag it for later. Then you blast away.
Understood.
Jack took a few steps away from the door just in case, then pulled his blade. After pointing it at the stationary stuffed floor boss, he initiated his mining laser. He expected the giant thing to burst into flame and helplessly try and claw at them through the door, but instead, the stuffed dragon split open, and about 20 or more smaller versions of the same green toy came pouring out.
Oh, shit!
Jack yelled, angling his sword down and blasting one. Floor 13 boss M-22 defeated. The rest of the green plush dragons rushed to the door on stubby legs that moved much too fast. Alt blasted another one to dust, but there were still far too many. It was the plague rats all over again. 6 of them made it out into the hallway and opened their tiny stuffed mouths. What came out were flapping red and orange streamers, and where they struck Jack, he felt intense burning pain. Jack, -35, HP 118 out of 153. Jack, -35, HP 83 out of 153. Jack, -35, HP 48 out of 153. He dashed away from the deadly creatures and saw Lex sprint forward to intercept them at the door. From the corner of his eye, Jack saw the angry sun hovering down the hall and was glad his swift-moving friend made it out in time. He pointed his blade at one of the few that made it out the door, destroying another, but this was going to get out of hand really fast. Lex held her shield up, but it wasn't big enough to obstruct the massive amount of streamers flapping out of the tiny monsters. Lex minus 32, HP 258 out of 290. Lex minus 32, HP 226 out of 290. More were spilling out into the hallway, and unless he figured something out, they were in danger of getting surrounded. Jack's eye zipped over to Alt, who lanced another stuffed toy with his eye beams, and he realized that he wasn't out of options yet. He quickly pulled up the Alter-Alt interface and yelled,
Stink 'em out!
Before slapping the Bile King option. Jack then turned to face the Bastion, trying to hold the door. Lex minus 32, HP 194 out of 290. Lex minus 32, HP 162 out of 290. Lex minus 32, HP 130 out of 290.
Get out of there, Lex!
He yelled as the morbidly obese monster known as the Bile King made his appearance next to the leather-clad beauty. Alt's passive green cloud of funk permeated the whole area, and the miniature boss dragons began popping from the area effect damage. Floor 13 boss D minus 22 defeated. Floor 13 boss H minus 22 defeated. Floor 13 boss N minus 22 defeated. Floor 13 boss S minus 22 defeated. Jack blasted any more that came out of the boss chamber with his death laser, and the battle was over quickly after that. The euphoric tingling of reaching hero level 14 washed over Jack, and he shuddered with pleasure. Lex sheathed her blade behind her back and put a hand to her nose.
Nice thinking,
she said, turning to Jack. Jack, in turn, bowed deeply toward Alt's new portly form.
And nice stinking, Your Majesty.
The stench-ridden form of Alt nodded briskly, and the creature's jowls undulated with his movements.
A prime use of this particular collected form and of the ability itself.
Let's get out of here,
Lex said, walking into the boss chamber. She looked over her shoulder and added,
No offense, Alt. You're undoubtedly amazing, but I can't abide this stench.
None taken, Lex. I shall see you both for tomorrow's climb.
With that, the Bile King locked eyes with Jack before waddling his massive form back down the pinball-lined hall.
Until tomorrow, Alt,
she said.
Loot the chest while I heal myself, Jack. Then I'll heal you.
He was about to join her in the boss chamber when Alt spoke directly in Jack's mind.
By the way, even if Lex keeps that artifact, the town will reach level 3 today. Before it does, I can affect which buildings get upgraded. Of the 4 options, the wall, the lumber mill, the inn, and the townsfolk houses, 3 will randomly get upgraded unless you choose to sacrifice one, making the others certain. Also, the flour mill will be restored. It won't matter too much because the job is fairly straightforward, and most townsfolk will be proficient. But you should probably pick someone to load the grain into the hopper.
As always, this form of communication was much faster than normal speech, and all of this was conveyed before Jack took one step. Jack sent back questions regarding the flour mill.
Yes, it's a windmill that turns a grindstone, automatically transforming grain into flour. The farm should be able to supply the wheat, and then Demi will be able to make breads.
Jack mentally drooled over the culinary possibilities. He queried Alt about the long-shot possibility of just deleting the Fisherman's Wharf altogether and replacing it with another new building, or maybe an extra upgrade. Sol caused too many problems for everyone, and he was done with seafood.
Not really,
Alt responded, but there was a longer-than-normal pause.
Actually, now that you mention it, when the town upgrades, there is a small window of opportunity where I could technically delete the wharf and put it right back. The good news is the option for townsfolk assignment would be reset. Your penchant for odd creativity continues to impress me, Jack. As I've established before, this is why having a player in the world makes all the difference, because as I've previously stated, creativity really isn't my strong suit. and is why I had to employ multiple gaming station hardware/software matrices.
Do it! Assign Garl.
Jack said out loud, cutting off Alt's rapidly spiring ramble.
And assign that guard... Blevins, right? Assign him to the flour mill where he can toil and stay out of trouble. I'm going to ask Lex about the rest.
Jack wanted to make all the decisions about how to upgrade Blackmoor Cove, but he thought it might be time to start asking the townsfolk what they wanted. He was no medieval city planning expert, after all.
Understood,
Alt said in his mind.
Also, Soul will be randomly assigned after the creative use of system mechanics.
Jack mentally let him know the message was received. He smiled as he walked into the boss chamber and said,
That'll be fun.
What'll be fun?
Lex said, finishing her lovely healing melody.
Help me make a decision, Lex. Before we leave the tower, I need to pick 3 of 4 buildings to get upgraded when the town levels. Which would you pick? The inn, the wall, the lumber mill, or the townsfolk houses? I'm leaning toward kicking out the lumber mill myself. Affects fewer people.
Lex just stood there blinking at him.
You can pick?
Well, Alt's doing the heavy lifting. I need to make the decision, and I want your advice. Oh, and Alt also told me that the town will still level even if you keep Molly the Moppet. Which I am still in favor of, by the way.
Lex closed her golden eyes and shook her head.
The madness never ends with you,
She whispered.
I know. I'm a lot to handle.
Jack said, flashing her a winning smile.
You think about it while I loot the boss chest.
He patted across the short pile carpet of the party room and held his hand out to collect their winnings. Floor 13 rewards, boss chest. Alabaster buckler, shield, value 64. Defense 27, max HP plus 37. Mage hacker, sword, value 63. Damage 21, max MP plus 18. Magic power plus 13. Lucky coin, offhand, value 67. Main hand damage plus 3. Randomizes on floor transition. Max HP plus 12. Dodge plus 30. Instant exit. Entire party exits. Item destroyed on use. Holding hands with fate. Jack couldn't believe his eyes. Everything in this chest was useful, and he only struggled for a moment over the choices. The debate over whether he was going to ditch the shield had been decided. Not only did this unique offhand item boost his own stats, but would carry over to Alt as well. He fed the mage blade to the entity living in his main hand slot, then moved both the alabaster shield and his own kite shield into his inventory. With excitement running over his spine like ice water, he moved the coin into his offhand slot. He expected to find a disc of metal in the palm of his hand, but there was nothing there. He turned his gloved hand over in confusion and saw something new embedded in the leather. Snugly wedged into a round slot that hadn't been there before was a well-worn silver coin with a 7-pointed star etched into its surface. Jack made a fist, then shook his hand out. The coin wasn't going anywhere, and he was grateful he didn't have to clutch onto the small object while fighting.
Lex? I think I'm going to focus on dodge from now on.
Oh? Find something interesting in there?
He turned to face her with his left fist up.
Notice anything off-handy about me?
The blonde Bastion's golden eyes unfocused as she inspected his items and slowly nodded.
That's a fantastic unique offhand, Jack. I know you hated taking damage through your blocks. The random element could be good or bad, though. I've heard of items like this. Be warned that the damage value has the potential to come up negative.
Jack's smile faltered.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
I suppose we'll just have to try our luck,
Lex said. Jack's smile returned.
Clever. Anyway, what about the town upgrade? Any thoughts?
You're probably right about the lumber mill, but it feels wrong leaving someone out.
Jack crossed his arms.
We could let random chance decide, but that hadn't been doing Blackmoor any favors. It's time to take control and guide our town to prosperity.
Lex stepped forward and put her hand on his arm, her eyes soft with affection.
That was the first time you called it our town.
He reached out and pulled the shorter woman into his arms. Lex quickly returned the embrace and rested her head on his chest. Jack really wanted to kiss her, and right now might have been a great time to do it, but her head was angled down, and something in her body language told him that it would still be rushing things. He settled for pressing his lips onto the top of her golden hair instead. Jack paused there, breathing her in slowly, and then let her go, breaking the embrace.
Come on. There's still a lot of work ahead of us. And a few surprises when we get back home.
Lex healed him with her voice, and just before she touched the softly glowing orb that sent her back outside, she cast her eyes on him once more. She took a deep breath, smiled sweetly, and then she was gone. Jack walked over to the exit orb and looked up into the streamer-decorated ceiling.
Hold the upgrade on the lumber mill, Alt,
he said, before slapping the glassy orb himself and following her to the gray skies of Blackmoor Cove. Raya clomped over to them quickly and thrust out her hand. Cupped in her palm was a slightly oversized, vividly blue egg.
We've got eggs,
she said.
Oh, bunches of them.
Jack gave her a wide smile.
That's great, Farmer Raya, but we're about to get a lot more than eggs. Hold on to your butts, ladies.
Lex and Raya exchanged glances, and even though the Bastion knew what was coming, the phrase caught her by surprise. Jack went over to the fountain and held his hand, initiating the transfer of items into the chest.
You wish to keep that new shield and the fork still, correct?
Alt asked in his mind. Jack sent him back an affirmative. A few floors ago, Alt had offered to automate the process of dumping in items as the task became more laborious with every floor they climbed. There was an all-encompassing flash, and then everything changed. The first thing Jack noticed was the fountain, as it was right in his face. Gone was the mossy, crumbled stone, and in its place was a brand new and polished granite work of art. Along the rim of the basin were small decorative protrusions, and the water itself was now reaching over Jack's head. Turning to look at the girls' reactions to the change, he saw them staring at the tower behind him. He spun on his heel and found that the infinitely tall structure had changed in appearance as well. Instead of loose, weather-beaten stones, the sides of the impossible structure were also now smooth, and the whole thing seemed to have been built yesterday. Movement on the right drew his eye, and a huge canvased windmill with an attached building now stood on the cliffside across from the farm. Jack smiled. That had to be the new flour mill.
Is that?
He heard Raya start behind him. Jack turned to face her.
Yep. Better get growing that wheat or I'll have to replace you.
The freckled woman just stared at him, blinking, the precious egg in her hand forgotten.
I'm kidding, Raya. I'd never replace you. That's a beautiful blue future baby bird you have there.
Lex gripped the larger woman by her shoulder and gave her a little shake.
Snap out of your stupor and let's go eat.
As they walked to the eye of the storm, Jack noticed a new wooden fence lining the dirt path, and when they got to the inn itself, he saw the old wooden shutters had been painted a midnight blue. Beneath each of the windows sat a flower box with clumps of what looked like white dandelions.
Oh, I bet Demi is going to be in a good mood,
Jack said, pointing at the spruced-up inn.
Everyone is,
Lex said.
especially since their homes are whole again too.
Jack looked to his right and saw a few of the fishermen and guards jumping up and down in the road in front of their houses. He couldn't help the wide smile from overtaking his whole face. He was doing it. He was turning this place around. Jack, Lex, and Raya entered the inn, and Demi waved from behind the counter.
A grand exit to you, heroes.
Lex shot a sly look over to Jack, wordlessly communicating, "You called it." They sat down in their customary spot in the corner, and every townsfolk that walked through the front door came up to their table to thank them. Jack stood and shook the hand of each one. As the night went on, Demi danced around the room, serving a variety of dishes and humming a sparkling melody as she moved. Jack expected to see a status effect from the way her tune seemed to elevate everyone's good moods. Then Sol kicked open the door.
You did this!
He yelled, and everyone turned to look at Jack. Behind the tall owl of a man stood his daughter, Haley, staring at the ground. Jack hoped that deposing her father as wharfmaster didn't shake up her life too much. Sol took one long step into the inn, letting the door close behind him and his teenage daughter. He looked about to speak again when the equally tall form of Demi appeared in front of him.
Sol, what brings the master up from his wharf and into my fine establishment?
The man snarled before he spoke.
I no longer hold that title. That old fool Garl is your new wharf master somehow, and it must be the black work of this evil devil of a creature sitting in your fine establishment.
The balding man looked around at the rest of the townsfolk.
When was the last time you heard of someone's very livelihood being stolen, I ask you? Is it natural to suddenly gain a farm outside a town level? This demonic creature was sent from the tower itself and will bring doom to us all.
The ex-wharf master was shaking as he spoke, the bare scalp on the top of his head practically glowing red from fuming rage.
Harek was right all along. I say we drive this beast from our home before it's too late. Who's with me?
Quiet settled over the common room of the Eye of the Storm for a few heartbeats, and then Jack heard the sliding of a bench against the stone floor. 3 of the townsfolk he recognized as guards stood and moved over to stand by Jack, their hands on his shoulder. Then, one after another, all the townsfolk stood and made a wall in front of the irrelevant hero. Finally, the silver-haired innkeeper backed up to stand in front of the group and crossed her arms.
Seems like the entire town disagrees with your assessment of the current situation.
Jack stood and moved around the group of townsfolk, patting shoulders in appreciation. He came to a stop in front of Sol and then looked down at his black-haired daughter. She kept her eyes turned down to the floor, and he genuinely felt bad for her. Jack locked his eyes back on the angry owl of a man scowling down at him.
I'm not going anywhere, Sol, and I only do what's best for my town.
He paused and heard positive murmurs from the townsfolk arrayed behind him. Jack continued.
Let's let these people have their meal in peace and talk outside, shall we?
What's there to discuss? We've been kicked from our home, and I am now to serve as a lowly guard. You've practically murdered myself, and by extension, my daughter. And if none of you cowards will do anything about it—
Enough!
Jack shouted, cutting him off.
The only coward here I see is you.
Louder cheers came from behind Jack, but the last thing he wanted was to completely destroy the man or make him an outcast. Sol was a resource, a piece of the complete puzzle, and if he truly wanted to do the best for Blackmoor Cove, he would find a way to fit him into a good place. Jack turned and held his hand up to the slowly transforming mob behind him, and they settled into quiet once again.
Sol, please, allow me to buy you and your daughter dinner. She can stay here under the protection of Demi while you come walk with me alone.
He opened a trade interface with Sol, moved 30 coins over, and tapped the accept button. The other man's eyes narrowed, but Jack knew he had begun to speak his language. Sol loved his coin. The tall, frowning man accepted the trade. He then got on his knee to face his daughter.
I am sorry, my dear. This is what we've been reduced to. Scraps and handouts.
Demi stepped up and held her hand out to Haley.
You know she'll be safe here.
Sol stood and seemed to open a trade menu with the silver-haired innkeeper. While they did this, Jack took the opportunity to inspect the ex-wharfmaster. Sol, townsfolk, wall guard, 13% proficiency. Health, 5 out of 5. Relationship, disposition, loathing. Alt's electronic voice echoed in Jack's mind.
It's a worse fit than his previous job, but seeing as we've taken 2 people from guard duty, Raya and Blevins, the system apparently sought to correct this imbalance. I'm sorry. I should have known.
Jack sent his friend a mental pat on the back. They'd figure something out. After a final glance down at his daughter, Sol locked his huge eyes on Jack, and the dark V-shaped eyebrows were pulled almost to his nose. He looked about to say something, but the tall-robed man turned and stalked out of the inn. Jack cast a glance back at Lex, giving her a nod before he followed Sol into the twilight. His long strides had the new wall guard halfway to the crossroads before Jack caught up. Jack considered his words carefully. The only way to win was to have Sol working for the town's benefit, not against it, no matter how much he wanted to spit venom at this grown man's childish tantrum.
Sol, let me start by apologizing to you.
The owlish man wasn't expecting that, and he slowed his steps slightly. Jack continued while he had his attention.
You are correct. This was my doing, just like the farm and just like everything else that I will make happen to bring this town back from the edge of oblivion.
Sol stopped abruptly in the middle of the dirt road and turned to face Jack.
What exactly are you apologizing for, Abomination? I must have missed it.
You were a bad fit for the wharfmaster position. Everyone knew it, even you. I wanted to correct that, but it was not my intention that you become a guard. It's not where you belong.
The angry man was about to say something, and Jack held up his hand.
Look, you know I am trying to guide this town on the correct path. It's true that I have this ability, and I'm going to use it as best as I can. Eventually, as I gain in power, I will find a fitting position, Sol. I vow on my life that I will do this for you, but not just for you, for everyone in Blackmoor Cove. Stick with me. Work with me, and you and your daughter will have a long, happy life.
The owlish man crossed his arms and cocked his head to the side.
A long life? Hard to accomplish, as I'm to battle on the front lines as a wall guard.
Jack sighed. He looked around and saw the new flour mill's blades gently spinning in the salty sea breeze. He pointed out the structure to Sol.
Can you see that?
The new mill? What am I supposed to—
Jack held his hand up again, cutting him off.
You can see it, right?
Of course I can see it. I'm not blind.
Good,
Jack said as he pointed to the fountain. In the fading light, he could barely make out the stream of water against the tower.
How high is that water reaching from the base of the fountain?
About 6.5 feet,
Sol said, eyeing the fountain.
Are you trying to prove how wonderful you've made things for everyone else but me?
No. I've spent every morning for the last 9 days training with Herrick at the wall. I know how things are handled there. Until I figure out how to reassign your job, you'll be placed on top of the wall as a lookout. You'll be as far away from combat as possible and serve as a spotter. Kron is no fool. Getting you killed helps no one.
I don't like change, Jack. And I don't like you.
I know. You don't need to like me. You only need to love this town. And as far as not liking change, You better get your damn stubborn head right about that fast, because I am going to really shake this place up.
A flickering flame down in Jack's gut flared into something new. Now that things were finally happening, and he was growing stronger, Jack could clearly envision a future where he became a true leader. He was going to absolutely max this town, then blaze a swath across this whole world and fix every last broken part. He turned his eyes back to the frowning tall man in black robes standing in front of him.
Mark my words, Soul. My destiny is to burn out every mode of corruption in this world. You can get in my way, or you can come along for the ride. The choice is yours.
With that, Jack turned his back on the ex-wharf master and went back to eat his dinner with his friends. Chapter 28. Over the next 10 days, Jack and Lex climbed the tower, one floor at a time, and after a week of celebration, the townsfolk had finally settled into their new and improved lives. Everything in the dreary run-down town of Blackmoor Cove had a new shine to it. Jack discovered that not only had their rooms at the inn become larger, the building had also grown a new third room. Additionally, Raya had quickly cultivated a whole field of wheat for the mill and began to slaughter the renewable domesticated orb pheasants. They definitely didn't taste like chicken, but they were deliciously edible. Especially since Demi baked fresh bread from the flour and added grilled onion and pheasant sandwiches to her growing menu, complete with blue mayonnaise from their eggs. Even Soul settled down and quietly did his new job. Kron had him handling the finances for paying and feeding the guards when not perched up on the wall as a lookout. Garl excelled as the new wharf master and came up to shake Jack's hand as he delivered the fish himself daily. The townsfolk saw the price for seafood come down considerably. When Jack inspected the old fisherman, he saw a 99% proficiency rating, the highest he had ever seen. He expected his relationship with the beautiful golden-haired Bastion to grow as they worked together to tear apart each new floor boss, but over the last few days she had become distant, withdrawn. He wanted to talk to her about it, but he knew it had to do with her mother. Jack told himself that if she continued to remain withdrawn after they both hit hero level 25, he would confront her. It seemed her father had been paying attention to their daily progress as well, because when he came to train with Herrick the day they intended to tackle floor 24, he found the bygone knight sitting against a rain barrel with his old wooden pipe clenched between his stained teeth. "Not today," was all he said, never looking up. Jack thought of Lex being locked at that hero level for years, and felt unfaltering determination to stand by her side, helping her finally burn through this blockage and grow into a new chapter of her life, hopefully closely intertwined together. Jack, Lex, and Alt quickly climbed the first 20 floors, but after that things got more difficult. Monsters hit harder, there were more traps, and bosses had more hit points, but with Alt morphing to fit the situation, they defeated floor 23's boss, a four-armed giant with a serpent body and a terribly sharp scimitar in each hand. Jack kept his eyes on Lex as she walked up to the arched wooden door with the number 24 seared into it. They were finally here. If they defeated the next boss, both of them would reach hero level 25 and boost their paths to the second tier. Jack couldn't wait to see how Mining Laser improved, his bread-and-butter skill, but helping Lex put her past behind her occupied most of his mind. After looting the boss chest and putting the unfortunately useless items into his inventory, he approached her and laid his hand on her shoulder.
"I'll be by your side the whole time,"
he said softly. Alt, the angry son, floated up to her other side and hovered silently, lending his own support. Lex turned to face him, her golden eyes glassy and her cheeks wet with tears. She wiped her face with the back of her gloved hand and nodded. Then she reached out for the door to floor 24, and a white void of light filled their vision. Jack, minus 38, HP 247 out of 285, Alt, minus 47, HP 3 out of 50. Terrible pain in his side and a series of hit point updates assaulted Jack the moment they appeared on floor 24. On instinct alone, he drew his sword and hacked at the black creature attached to his leg with double strike. Off-world terror, minus 90, HP 155 out of 245. He heard Lex scream next to him.
No! This is impossible!
Angry Sun Alt zipped out of range from his attacker and fired his eye-beams on the alien creature attached to Jack. The vile thing seemed to be nothing but shiny black legs and teeth. Off-world terror, minus 90, HP 65 out of 245. Then Jack activated his mining laser, taking one more hit before finishing it off. Off-world terror, minus 45, HP 20 out of 245. Jack, minus 38, HP 209 out of 285. Off-world terror, minus 45, defeated. Lex finally got a hold of herself and began hacking the creature chasing Alt, and as a team, the second monster quickly disappeared into ash.
It's the same!
Lex cried, spinning slowly in place as she looked at their surroundings.
How can it be the same?
Jack followed suit and discovered that they were standing in an enormous library. The bookshelves around them contained countless tomes of various colors and continued upward for about 4 stories before disappearing into darkness. At this point, he had experienced hundreds of unique floors, but he had never been ambushed at the entrance. There was also the fact that both he and Alt were doing reduced damage. As he did on every floor transition since he received his favorite item, Jack checked his lucky coin. Lucky coin, offhand, value 67. Main hand damage, minus 10. Randomizes on floor transition. Max HP plus 12, dodge plus 30. Instant exit, entire party exits, item destroyed on use. Holding hands with fate. It was the worst damage bonus he had ever seen, and he knew the coin needed to be swapped out for a shield, but his attention went straight to the hysterical woman he had come to cherish dearly.
Relax, Lex. Talk to me,
he said, stepping close. Her wild golden eyes focused on his, and she rushed into his arms, sobbing.
It's all the same! It's all the same!
She repeated into his chest.
Something is very odd here,
Alt said, hovering close.
This floor has been loaded and running for years. This shouldn't be possible.
Then they heard a man's voice yelling in the distance.
I say, is someone there? Hello?
Lex pulled her face away and said,
Thymus?
Before she tore off, sprinting between the shelves in the vast library.
Wait, Lex!
Jack shouted and dashed after her. She whipped through the bookshelves and around corners through the floor until they came face to face with another group of 3 alien spider monstrosities. The creatures saw them approach and began skittering swiftly in their direction. Both Jack and Alt blasted one with their ranged beam attacks while Lex readied her shield. It was not like her to rush headlong into danger like this, and when this fight was over, Jack was planning on grabbing her and holding on until she calmed down. Then something happened that Jack wasn't expecting. As the creatures closed the distance to his party, a bolt of lightning from an aisle between the shelves struck one of the creatures as it ran past. Off-world terror, minus 140, HP 105 out of 245. Jack switched his beam to that creature and burned it down before it reached Lex. When the other 2 did, Lex slammed her shield into the first alien terror to reach her as the second clambered up the bookshelf to her left with its needle-sharp claws. She brought her sword down, screaming with rage as she hacked at the monster in front of her, but the second creature leaped from the towering stack of books and landed on her back. Critical, Lex minus 60, HP 230 out of 290.
Behind!
Alt called out, and before Jack turned to look, he saw a terrible message. Alt minus 47, defeated. He spun to see one of the dog-sized alien terrors closing in from behind and turned to focus his death laser on it. Off-world terror -45, HP 200 out of 245. The shiny black monster skittered close along the waxed wooden floor of the library as Jack held his beam steady, but it was going to take 5 more seconds before the thing was dead. Off-world terror -45, HP 155 out of 245, HP 110 out of 245, HP 65 out of 245. It made it to him in 3, leaping the last few feet in an attempt to latch onto Jack's chest. Utilizing his focus on dodge, Jack turned sideways and was able to spin away from the attack. He threw out his arm at the last minute and brought his blade wide across the thing's chitinous back, activating double strike as he made contact. Off-world terror -90, defeated. Continuing his spin, he turned to face Lex, again struggling with 2 attackers, and noticed she was losing health fast. Lex -30, HP 150 out of 290. Jack blasted the one on her back with his mining laser, and Lex focused all of her attention on ending the wounded alien creature in front of her. After a few more seconds, the battle was over. He sprinted up to the bastion with the intent to hold on to her, but she dashed forward, down the offshoot where the lightning came from. When Jack reached the intersection, he saw an old man in blue robes shimmying around what looked like a silver Tesla coil, something he saw in a museum once that made his hair stand up on end. Lex stood in the hallway, panting, as the elderly mage with a long gray beard came to meet her.
Lex, you came back, but you're all grown up. If you're here, that must mean...
The stranger looked past her and sprinted right for Jack. He held up his blade, not knowing what to expect, but the crazy wizard never gave Jack a second glance as he hightailed it back through the towering bookshelves.
Thymus, wait!
She yelled. Lex followed the man, tears streaming down her cheeks, but Jack grabbed her when she was in range.
Tell me what is going on,
he demanded.
Was that the same Thymus from...
Jack was cut off when a deafening screech hit them from further into the lofty hallway of books. Both heroes turned behind them and saw a creature that was half beetle and half bear crawl around a corner. It wore the same shiny black bug-like armor as the other monsters on this floor, and had thick, hairy legs ending in bizarre tapered points, like wrought iron harpoons. The creepy horror was straight out of a nightmare. Lex tore herself from Jack's grip and screamed,
You killed my mother!
Before she rushed the monster like a maniac. With Alt gone and both of them half dead, there was no way they could risk fighting what had to be the floor boss. Even if he swapped out the coin for a better offhand item and formulated a plan of attack in the microsecond he had, Lex seemed to be in no state of mind to act strategically. A little voice in Jack's mind called him a coward for what he was about to do, but he knew that this was the only real option. Jack whispered,
I'm sorry, Lex.
Before he looked down at the silver coin wedged into his glove and activated instant exit. After the blinding flash, Jack blinked and saw half of the town gathered around the fountain. Demi stood in the middle and was holding out a cake with the number 25 written on it. Everyone's mouths hung open as both Lex and the stranger called Thymus fell to their knees on either side of Jack. Lex pounded her sword onto the round pebbles, sending up sparks, while the older mage in the blue robes collected handfuls of the smooth stones in his fists. Both were sobbing.
Thymus?
Demi said, breaking the silence.
Damn you, Jack!
Lex said, standing up. She turned her red-rimmed eyes to face him, and he had never seen her so furious.
I could have exacted my revenge. I could have, and you took that from me!
The golden-eyed hero stalked off along the cliffside toward the mill, and Jack just watched her go. He had only the faintest idea of what was going on, But even if she hated him forever, he knew he had made the right call. The old wizard struggled to get to his feet, and Jack reached out to him, feeling sorry for the old-timer. The man looked up into his eyes as he gripped onto Jack's arm for support. He was stronger than the frail old man his curly gray beard projected. Deep brown, almost black eyes focused on Jack's, and the old wizard nodded his thanks. Jack took a moment to inspect him. Thymus, hero class, Arcane Mage, level 29. Health, 25 out of 260. Mana, 404 out of 520. Relationship, disposition, reserved. By this time, the group of townsfolk had recovered from the shock and swarmed the two heroes. Thymus blinked away tears as he shook hands with some, while others patted him on the back.
Mello, it's good to see you, friend. Jasper, it's been so long. Garl, you've aged. Everyone's aged.
Demi stepped in, still holding a cake she made to surprise Jack and Lex after they reached hero level 25.
How is this possible, you old coot?
After she spoke, her eyes shot to Jack, pinning him in place. He held up his hands.
It wasn't me this time, I swear!
The mage looked over at Jack and then shook his head, his long beard swaying back and forth on his chest.
It's been a long nightmare, but it's finally over. That is, unless I'm hallucinating again.
He slapped himself in the face, making a loud crack, and Jack saw the damage report. Thymus -1, HP 24 out of 260. Alt spoke quickly in Jack's mind.
He's in your party because he was still in Lex's party. One of her group was still alive inside when she re-entered floor 24, causing the same floor to load. Apparently, this man survived in there for over a decade.
Jack nodded. That explained a lot, but not everything.
Stop that nonsense,
Demi said, and handed Raya the cake. She then grabbed Thymus and began to sing. Everyone remained still and quiet as the bygone siren healed the old mage. Jack had seen Lex do this 100 times, but Demi pulled out all the stops for this healing. A beacon of light shot up into the sky and bathed the area in a green glow. By the time the mesmerizing song was over, both Jack and Thymus were fully healed.
I think I know what happened, sorta,
Jack said.
He and Lex were still in a group when we entered floor 24. The tower must have presented us with the same exact floor because he was still alive, waiting all this time.
He turned to the old man, inviting him to continue the story. Thymus nodded.
After Micah set off the trap, I watched that foolish boy die, and then I found myself separated from the others. I thought them all dead. I was ever so glad to lay my eyes on Lex, but I almost didn't recognize her. When I saw that she had grown, 12 years?
Something like that,
Demi said. Thymus looked to the ground and nodded.
When I saw her standing there, I knew they had come back. I should have held my ground and helped fight, but I was a coward and ran for the exit orb. I knew the rescue party must have cleared the way to the entrance. Tell me, where's M?
The old wizard searched the crowd for this M person. Demi bit her lip and shook her head.
Lex says she saw her mother die in the tower, Thymus. She was the only one to exit that day.
The old mage in the blue robes hung his head. When he spoke, it was at the ground.
That impetuous rogue set off a wandering monster spawn trap after we engaged the floor boss. M and Lex held off the boss while Micah and I dealt with the constantly spawning monsters. It was utter chaos, and we were overwhelmed. I backed myself into an alcove and put down my lightning turret. The boss wandered the floor, but if I stayed quiet, the beast always returned to the boss chamber.
He looked up and locked his eyes on Demi.
If it wasn't for the mana-heavy rest bonus that morning... Regardless, the monsters kept spawning and wandering because the trap had never been closed, and with every new foe slain, I recovered more mana, just enough to cast another turret. The cycle repeated and repeated, and...
The old mage began to sway on his feet, and Demi came to his aid this time.
Come on, let's get a hot meal in you and a soft bed.
He began to weep again.
I haven't eaten. I don't remember.
Shh.
The silver-haired innkeeper soothed him as she led him away.
It's over now.
The group dispersed, and Jack found himself standing alone by the fountain. He figured he should go check on Lex, so he walked in the tall grass along the cliff after her. He passed under the whirling blades of the flour mill as the stormy sea provided the muscle needed to grind the flour. Jack wondered briefly why the thing wasn't torn to shreds by the cove's sometimes violent winds, but then he remembered that nothing of this place needed to obey the laws of physics as he had known them. It took much longer than before to reach the edge of the corruption. The town must have grown in power from the influx of valuable items and pushed its vile influence back. He found the shorter hero standing alone in a grassy field, gazing out over the black and purple writhing mess spreading beyond. Her shoulder-length blonde hair fluttered away from her neck as the sea's cool, salty breeze buffeted her from the side. He walked up next to her and waited, silently lending her his support. After a few minutes, she spoke.
I apologize for cursing you, Jack. Standing here and looking out over all of this has reminded me who my true enemy is.
She turned to face him, and he gazed down into her clear golden eyes.
It's not that horrible Floor 24 boss. It's not my neglectful father or Thymus. And it's certainly not you. You made the right call. And even though I may never get the chance to physically destroy the creature that cut my mother down before my very eyes, I live to fight the battle that matters.
Jack pressed his lips tight and nodded.
Lex, I am dedicated to you and this town. By your side, we will both continue to fight for what matters.
Her golden eyes each spilled out a single tear, and she lunged forward into his arms. Jack held the woman he loved for a long time. The sun went down, and he drank in her body heat as she pressed against him. Eventually, he leaned forward to kiss the top of her head again, but she pushed away slightly and looked up into his eyes with deep longing. He paused, making sure he read what he thought was there, then slid his hand up behind the silky soft hair on the back of her head and pulled the bastion in for a long, passionate kiss. The wind picked up and pushed against his back, but he didn't feel it. He only felt her perfect lips on his and lost himself in their embrace. Some time later, they walked back to the inn, hand in hand, but when they got near the front door, Herrick burst out and began stomping his way back to the wall. Jack and Lex had a moment to look at each other before Thymus came out after him. The mage stopped at the corner of the inn and began to yell.
Old friend, please! I did everything in my power! It's been so long! I've wanted to talk to you!
Herrick yelled over his shoulder.
You've been dead to me, and you will always be dead to me!
With that, the bygone night disappeared into the darkness, while the old wizard slumped to his knees again.
Come on.
Lex said, and Jack could feel determination radiate out of her. They both ran up to the old mage and helped him to his feet.
Thymus, look at me,
Lex said, and the man with a long gray beard turned his bloodshot eyes to meet hers.
My father did not take the death of my mother well, and neither did I. But I know you aren't to blame.
The mage nodded slowly.
This man is Jack,
she said, rubbing her hand on Jack's arm.
He is a good man. You stay with him while I go talk to my father.
The Bastion didn't wait for a response before stalking after her old man, leaving Jack alone with Thymus outside the eye of the storm. Jack reached out his hand to the arcane mage.
We've not properly met. It's good to know you, Thymus.
The old wizard took his hand firmly and nodded.
The feeling is mutual.
Have you eaten?
A bit, but I could do with another of those odd blue boiled eggs.
They both entered the inn and sat at a table. They ate while Jack filled the old new hero with his own story and what he was capable of doing for the town. Demi came by a few times and corroborated everything, but inspecting Jack and his main hand item sold his unbelievable tale more than anyone could. He left out most of the true stuff regarding the reality of their world, or, more aptly, the virtual reality of it. He also left out the existence of Alt, for the time being. Jack was pleasantly surprised to see how sane the arcane mage was after his nightmarish solitary confinement in the tower, and set it in his mind to recruit the older hero. A few days passed, and everyone took it easy. Jack and Lex stopped each day at floor 23, and Thymus spent some time acclimating to normal life again. Herrick never came back from the wall and renewed his downward spiral of more and more joyweed. Their training ended the day Thymus returned. Instead, Jack and Lex woke up early and sparred with each other, Jack focusing on his dodging while Lex focused on her blocking. On the third day after they pulled him out of the tower, they found the old wizard waiting for them at breakfast time. Before Thymus could speak, Jack gave him a nod and said,
Welcome to the team.
This has been Irrelevant Jack, written by Prax Venter, narrated by Justin Thomas James, featuring Jeff Hayes as Jack and Andrea Parseneau as Lex, Raya, and the rest of the female cast. Proofing, editing, and mastering by Justin Thomas James. Sound design by Ahmed Mahmoud and Justin Thomas James. Music by Andrea Parseneau and Justin Thomas James. Text copyright 2018 by Prax Venter. Production copyright 2019 by Prax Venter. A Soundbooth Theater production. To find more great video game fiction, check out the GameLit Society Facebook group. For more audiobooks or to see us perform live, sign up for our newsletter at soundbooththeater.com.